Okay, so in order to have the build that I have done, um, and again, it's similar to the Unity build in the sense that it's not just one file, it's it's an executable file, and then it's other files in here that you need to have all of this. So you would want to zip up this entire Unreal build folder on my desktop. So I created an Unreal build folder on my desktop, just like I did the Unity build folder. And I chose this to be the place where I built my game to. In Unreal, it's called packaging. And so I packaged my game into this, and I did it for shipping, which is why it took so long. And so everything has to go in there and be tested and make sure that you don't get any critical errors or anything. I did get a few errors, but they were not critical. So we've tested this and it does work. So what I added to this project was a menu screen similar to the one that I did in Unity. In fact, I used the same title graphic as I did in Unity. So I've got my folders down here, and I've got the graphic that I did for my Unity game. I brought in here, it's a PNG file. I put it in the My Decals folder because it's basically, that's where I'm keeping my images. And so it's this one right here, title text. Dragged it in and didn't really need to do much to it. I don't think I changed really anything from the defaults. It came in with the transparency since it's a PNG file. And, I can see it's 1024 by 260 for this image. So I'm using that, and then I'm using a couple of the buttons. So the easiest way for me to create a menu screen, because I have inside of my blueprints here, I have a couple of widgets, blueprints already for my windscreen. If I double click it, this is the one for my windscreen. It's got a canvas, it's got some text, a couple of pieces of text, and then it's got a couple of buttons. And then I also have one for my death screen. And I'm also using an image at the same time, so you get a blood splatter too. But this is, again, just text, a menu button, and a quit screen. And I did change these. This used to say previously restart instead of menu. But now that once I have a menu, I would want it to go to the menu and not just restart the current level. The first thing I did when I wanted to create this start menu is that I did take my scene that I was working on, and I saved it, did a file, save current level as, and I named it in my scenes folder. I created two new level files. One is called main game _ level, and the other one's called menu start demo _ demo. And so they're two separate level files, exactly the way I did them in the Unity game. And I did a similar thing. The main game level is exactly the way I've had it I didn't really change anything about that. But the menu start one, which I'm currently have open, that one I did change some things in. So one thing that you're going to want to do for a menu level is you're going to want to sort of position your camera in some place interesting. So if I hit play here so we can look at that, what I see is that my camera is placed kind of where I can see my structure and my animated gold head with fire there on one side, and then I'm placing my text and my start and quit buttons on the other side and lining them up. And I did a similar thing with the Unity game. I found a place that I thought looked good and sort of framed it with different interesting objects like my pickup objects, and so I can see my sky and some other things. So I'm doing the same thing here by moving my start object over sort of to this position. Just stop that. So you have a player start, and that's where it always kind of starts your camera off in the third person camera. And so I moved mine over here to be able to be positioned right in this place. And so you can see my player start is actually right here. And it's bringing me up there. So that's the first thing you're going to want to do in this new menu level is move your player start somewhere other than you would actually start, just somewhere that looks good if you want to do it the same way I'm doing it. And then I need to keep it from bringing the third person character up, because you'll notice that when I play here, there's no third person character, right? And that's because you need to go to your world settings. Now under the you're going to go to your world settings, which is, let me just check here. There it is, world settings, and make sure you choose that to open it. And you can see it opens over here in my details panel. And you can see that what I have set here in my world settings is a game mode override. So normally when we're in the main level that we've been building it in third person mode. And actually in the third person mode of your metahuman character is what we've been in. But you don't want that on a menu level because it's going to bring up your character, and then you would be able to hit the WASD keys and move around, and you don't really want that usually for a menu. You just want to see some of your scene and the buttons to get you started. So in order to turn that sort of third person stuff off, you got to switch your game mode. And you can see I've switched it to game mode base. Game mode base will turn off that third person mode. And I'm doing it in the override and not in the project settings. Because if you do it in the project settings, it's going to change it for all of your levels. but we want to just override the project settings and do it for just this one menu level. And if I go back and open up my main level, so I go to my main game level and double click it to open it. You're going to see that in my world settings for my main game level, I've got game mode override set to BP third person game. And under default pawn class, I have BP Erno third person. So that ensures that my metahuman character, which is named Erno, comes up when I hit play, right? So there he is. And I have control over him because I'm in the BP third person game mode. And all those things are there and connected. So that's kind of an important thing. If you're doing a start menu in Unreal, you don't want your third person controls to come up. You don't want your third person character to come out. You want to leave it here or just go to your world settings in your main, on your main level and make sure that they will come up here and then switch over to your menu start demo and switch that override to be game mode base. You're going to want the default pawn class to be default pawn, which doesn't bring up the third person character, but I think that happens automatically. You can see it's grayed out, so I don't even think you have to set that manually at all. So once I do that, and I position my player start where I want it to be, then I'm going to get this view and I'm not going to get any character coming up. And then what I need to do is just create a menu screen, a start menu screen, a GUI. And the easiest way to do that is to go and copy one of the ones that you've already created. So if you have a win screen or you have a death screen or something like that, all I did to make my start screen was I copied those because I've already got working buttons in those and they're pretty much the same buttons that I would need in my menu screen. So the only thing is I changed the text on one of them. So I would go to where my blueprints are and take one of these and just duplicate it. So to do that, you just right click it and choose duplicate. I'll just do my win screen. And when I duplicate it, I'll call it something. In this case, I'll just call it menu start. I've already got a menu start, so I'll put menu start 2 or something on it, just to distinguish this one from the other one. And then, so I got a menu start 2 here, and it's basically the same as my win screen. So I'll double click it to open it. And I'm going to want to change a few things. So I don't have to recreate the canvas. The canvas is already there. It's working, so I might as well just use it. But I don't want these 2 pieces of text. So I could just click on those and delete them. Because I have an image that I'm going to use. So I'm going to go ahead and instead go up here to my common area. And with the canvas panel selected, I'm going to add an image. So I'm just going to drag it over, drag it into the scene. And it's going to create it for me. I could then name it like start or title, call it title image. And so that title image, I want it to be the image that I brought in and put into my decals folder. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this whole thing here and dock it so it's easier to work with. And then I can go ahead and compile and save that. But I really want to go in and set this image in the right place. So to do that, I'm going to first anchor it. I want to anchor it to the mid right. So I'm going to choose the mid right anchor. And then I'm going to start moving it around. But before I move it around, let's go ahead and bring in the image. So down here, I've got a space for the image. I'm going to go ahead and click where it says none. Down in the bottom here, I'm going to type in title to find my title image. So I created this in Photoshop. It's a PNG file. When I bring it in, I see it's coming in really small because that's kind of the default size of it. And I want this to be, you know, a lot bigger. So I know that it's like 1024 by 200 or something. I'll go ahead and let's put in like, I don't think I want it to be that big. I'm going to put in like 800 in X, and let's put in Y 400 just to start to see what the size is. Maybe 400 is a little bit big. Let's try 350. And that looks like pretty good. And then, you know, maybe I'll make it a little bit smaller, 768. Let's try that. And then I want to move it a little bit over. And right now it's at negative 981 in X and negative 184 in Y. I want to probably make it about in X position negative, let's try 500. Actually, that's too much. Let's try 800. All right, so that's kind of pushing it over to the side where I want it, maybe more like 850. And I'll move it up a little bit. Let's do negative 350. So now it's in the right position. It's got the right anchor. And I want to go ahead and move the buttons right under it. So if I go to the buttons, I don't want this first button, this top button to say menu. I really would like it to say start, since this is the menu screen, so it makes more sense to be start. And then I want to move the button itself over. I could have created these buttons up here by dragging them over from the common area, but since I already have them there, I might as well leave them. I am going to anchor this in the same place as the other ones anchored. Instead of the middle, I'll anchor it to the mid right. And then I want to move them over, and pretty much they're about in the right place, but I just want to move them in X over to where, right under the title. So probably that's going to be something like negative 850. Or maybe more like 750. Okay, so negative 600 puts it about where I want it to be. And then I'll just go ahead and do the other one exactly the same. And now they're positioned correctly. So I can compile and save that. And if I look at the graph for these buttons, they're pretty much exactly what I need. The only thing is, I mean, the quit button, I really don't have to mess with at all. It's just running the quit procedure. But the other one, I probably will want to look at the level. Now, I've already sort of done this on those buttons, so it does have the correct. Actually, no, it doesn't. This is the wrong. It's going to menu start because I copied this from the win screen. And the win screen, you'd want to go back to the start menu. But from the start menu screen, you would not want to go to the start menu screen. So you'd want to go to the main level. So I'd want to click here under where it says on click button, open level. The level I need to choose is going to be my main level, main game level. So now that's going to go to the right place. And I'd want to compile and save that. So now everything should work correctly on these buttons. The quit one, I didn't have to change at all. The start one, I took to my main level. And I've compiled and saved it, so it's ready to go. All I got to do is display it in my screen, in my level. And I don't have to all I have to do is bring it up because I don't really need it to go away ever in this particular menu start level. It's always going to be there. So to bring that up, the best place to probably do that, to put the blueprint code for that, is in the level blueprint. So if I want to see the level blueprint, I'm going to go to here where it's got the little blueprint symbol here on the top of the window. And I would want to open up the level blueprint for this particular menu start demo. And what you can see is in my project, in my level blueprint, I have an event begin play and a sequence node. And because I have several audio things that I'm running. So I'm running several different 2D sounds. If you didn't have that, you could just go directly from your event begin play, or you could go to a sequence node, and if you have something else, you could take those other things out from the different pins on the sequence node and then add another pin. And that's what I've done here is I've added another pin, and out of that 3 slot of that array, I'm going to a create menu or create widget. So if I were to do this again from scratch, I'd add another pin. I drag out from it. I type in create widget. And create that node. And then this is really simple. All you got to do is display the widget, which is an add to viewport. So you go out from the out of that and do an add viewport. And you're going to get an add to viewport, choose it, and then connect the return value of the widget to the target. And then you have to make sure that you plug in the widget that you want to display, in which case I could type in the one I just made, which is the start menu. So I've got a start menu and a start menu 2. I could choose the start menu 2. And that's going to display that widget from the event begin play of this level blueprint. So if I don't want this other one to show up, I could just break this here. And now only this one should show up. Let me try compiling that and saving it. And then we'll go back to the game here. And if I hit play, I should see that new one come up. And you can see it's coming up in the right place. It's coming up here on the right side of my screen. Got the buttons below it. And if I hit start, it should take me to my main level. And everything should work as normal on my main level here. So it's all working. And as expected, and the connections are working. Again, I did go back to all the stuff on my win screen and everything to make sure that I set those to the correct menu start demo file when you click restart or when you click the menu button in those. One thing that I do want to mention that in this widget blueprint that I made here, I'm using kind of the default buttons here for button 0 and button 1 for the start and quit button. But you do have over on the right-hand side for these buttons, if you open them up, there's a normal section, there's a hovered section, there's a press section, just like we had in the Unity buttons. If you open those up, you can use an image. So I used an image in the start menu for the buttons, and I had hover buttons or hover images that I made in Photoshop and regular ones, and I plugged them in the Unity game. I haven't done that here yet, but I could do that right here by importing those regular and hover button images and plugging them in right here. And you can set the image size, you can even set a tint, and instead of using these default text buttons that I'm currently using. So pretty much you can do the exact same things that I did in the Unity game here in Unreal. And a lot of it does work in a similar way with the canvas and all of that. And then just save it and test it out, and it should work. Now, once you have all of that, you've got your start menu, you've got your win, and you've got your, you know, if there's challenges where you can get killed or have to repeat, then you got those screens, you got all of that working and connected. Then you're gonna need to build your game. And so in Unreal Engine, it's called packaging. And so, make sure you've saved everything. And then you're going to want to go to your project settings. So if you go to your edit, you can open your project settings if you don't already have it docked like I have here. And you're going to want to look at a few things. First of all, I would go to maps and modes and go in, and you're doing stuff when you're in this project settings, you're doing stuff on a project level, right? It's not like the individual scene file levels. It is on the project level now. And so this is going to affect all of those other levels, any ones that you're using. And in this case, I'm really only using two. My menu start underscore demo is a level I'm using, and then I'm using my main game underscore level. And so those are the only two that are going to be part of this game. But the most important one is that menu start demo, because that's where you're supposed to start. And so in here, in maps and modes, you're going to want to change your editor startup map and your game default map to your menu start level. Make sure you choose those here. Don't use your third person template or any of those things. Make sure that you're using this, your menu level, to start off with. And then after you set these, your default game mode at the top is BP third person game, but that's being overrode by those other settings that I did earlier in world settings for each of the levels we're using. So it's not even using this default game mode up here anymore on those two levels, because I've override these settings here. But these bottom settings, these default maps, are not being overrode. And so you're going to want to set those. And then you're going to go to packaging. And under packaging, you're going to want to, I've got use pack file and use to store. Those are defaults. I left them on. I think that's fine. Zero in this package compression is also the default. Share material shader guide on, that's default. All of these are defaults. The only thing that I changed in here was I switched under build configuration from development to shipping. So if you're doing your Unreal project for your final, I want you to build it to shipping, because that's going to make sure that everything is in there and that it's all updated correctly when you build it. It might take 2.5 hours like mine did, but it's going to all be there, and it's going to be in a package file, in a folder that you choose. So you're going to choose shipping. And then I left the rest of these things pretty much at default, except for this one, full rebuild. I turned that on. So I do think you want if you hover over it, it says if you're doing a shipped game, shipping packaging, then you should turn this on. And because that's going to make sure that everything is built into that package. And I want to make sure that it's all there for your final turn in. So make sure you turn that on too. And the rest of these are defaults. Include prerequisite installer. I didn't turn that on. That was already on. So set those things, the most important thing being shipping and full rebuild. And then there's some other things that you could look at in here. You could go to description. This is the project thumbnail it's using. Maybe you want to use something else if you want to. I mean, it's not required. You should put in the description. I would put your name in there. So under project name, I've got ADN 311 Topher Marafi demo. Put your name in there so that, you know, if I'm looking through this project later on when I'm grading and stuff, I know whose it is. All right, so put your name in the project name. Don't worry about the version. Project ID, don't mess with that. Description, you can put something in the description. And otherwise, I think the rest of this is fine at the defaults. There is some things, some of these other things. I don't mess with encryption. I don't think you need to do gameplay tags or movies. Supported platforms, I'm only got Windows turned on. We are building to Windows desktop, not Mac, not iOS, not Android. It's Windows desktop. So when you come in here, these are all going to be turned on. All platforms will be turned on. You're going to choose Windows anyway, but to be safe and to make your project build smaller, you may want to go and turn everything off except Windows here. And then when you go to target platform, make sure you're building to the desktop maximum. So we're building to a desktop executable, something that you will run from your desktop to do your, to record your demo video and also to turn into me. So make sure you check these. And then the only other thing you might want to check is if you go down under platforms, if you go to Windows, which is what we're building to, you'll see that you have some splash screen stuff that you could replace if you want to. They're 720 by 370, so you can hover over it to see what the size is. But if you wanted to make your own splash screen, you could. And just make it the same size as what is being used here and replace it with the three little dots to the right of that. You also have a game icon, which is using the Unreal one. It's not required that you replace these. If you want to use the Unreal logo and the Unreal stuff, that's fine. But if you want to put your own custom ones in there, you could do that here. You're building to Windows. So it's in the Windows one that I'm looking at, Windows platform. Okay, that's really all you need to look at in here under project settings. Set those things, go out, save your project, and then you can do your build. So the actual build is under platforms right here at the top of your view. So if you click on platforms, you're going to see under contents, SDK device management, Windows is going to be there. And you want to go in here, and the first thing you want to do is turn shipping on. You know, it won't be checked on by default. You got to turn it on, and it'll have a little white box next to it. So even though we set it in the other settings, it's not going to be on. Turn it on. And then come back to this, and you're going to make sure you're in Windows, and all you're going to choose is package project. And it's going to start doing its thing. It's going to ask you where you want to save it to. So you're going to choose a folder on your desktop that you create called Unreal Engine Build or your name, Unreal Engine Build, or something like that. And when you choose package project and you choose that folder, it's just going to start doing it. All the stuff that we've been watching for 2 hours here, it's going to come up in your console. And you'll see the progress of it. I could see it going through almost 3,000 packages that it had to build. And then I could see it going through all the way down to 1 to 0, and then it finished it up and it said build successful at the end. So that's going to come up in your console when you choose to do the build. And it'll come up in the lower right corner here of the window, and you can just click on it to open it up and make it larger. And you'll see all of you can watch it as it does its thing. Okay. That's it. That's all there is to building the project. It's a lot of waiting. Make sure you give yourself some time, and probably you'll have to come back to it. If you're doing that in here on these machines, if it takes 2 hours, you might have to, stay somewhere close by so that someone doesn't come in. It's like a render, right? So, if someone is rendering on a machine and they leave, then if someone comes in and decides they need to use that machine, they could reboot the machine and stop the render. So if you don't want that to happen to your build, you might have to stay around the lab to make sure that nobody cancels your build. So when you get done with your build, you're going to get on your desktop, in the folder that you created, these files. Make sure that you don't delete any of these files, because it needs all of these, the actual build. And then you should double click it to test it out to see that it's going to be working. And it should come up full screen. That's where you can do your Alt-Z to use the G-force to record it, or another way of recording it if you want to. And you can test it out by hitting start and quit. You can still see it's kind of using a bit of memory there. Maybe give it a chance to catch up before you start playing your game. Okay, so everything's working. And when you're going to turn this in, make sure you go back out to where you can zip up the entire folder by right-clicking it and choosing compress the zip file. And that's what you're going to upload to your project turn-in. Now mine, if I look at this folder, by right-clicking and go to properties, it's a 2 GB file. That could be a problem. I think 2 GB is the limit to the size of file that you can upload to Moodle. So if that is the case, if yours goes above 2 GB, you may not be able to upload it to Moodle. You might have to send me a link to a Google Drive or something, a shared Google Drive, where I can download it from there or something like that. But hopefully yours will be smaller than mine. I had a lot of PCG stuff in mine. I had a lot of things that I was procedurally creating, and so it's a pretty big file. But I do think this probably would upload because it's right around 2 GB. But if it's much bigger, it's not going to upload. And when I compress it, it might get a little bit smaller, but not a lot smaller. All right, that's pretty much all I wanted to cover today. I'm going to go ahead and sign off of Zoom. There any questions from anybody, including anybody that might be on Zoom? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop this, stop recording and stop sharing.